Hey everyone, Ingrid here from wellness2go.ca, and today I'm going to be talking about relationships in terms of crisis. So managing the crisis in our relationships, but it can go beyond, a little bit beyond that, managing crisis with our health, managing crisis with within the workspace or within families. There's a couple of things that are very, you could say, universal. Even dealing with the crisis within ourselves as individuals, right? So a few lessons that I've learned that have helped me along the way, it's and through dealing with clients and helping them manage their crisis. So that's what I want to talk about today. But so before we get there, like, subscribe, press that bell button. You can also find me over on social media at Wellness2Go in terms of Instagram. You can find me on Twitter, which is Ingrid Herbert 8, as in the number. And you can also go sign up for my newsletter on the website, wellness2go.ca, and it's called Good Food for Your Thoughts. So good food for your thoughts, healthy thinking, healthy mind. I really believe those are, it's very foundational. I think that's a foundational tool that we all should use in terms of feed the mind healthy thoughts, just like we feed our body healthy food to get the optimal health. So, okay. Having said that, so a few things that I've learned. It's we're in the storm, we're in the crisis. Things are chaotic or overwhelming. Lots of emotions. Things are flying around. And I say things are flying around. Emotions. Everything feels like it's, number one, it feels like it won't end. So I want to tell you, if you're listening to this video and you're in the midst of a crisis and it feels like there's no end, I want to tell you there is an end. It ends. I've had my crisis in terms of with the divorce and thinking it's never going to end, and that ended. I've had my crisis dealing with postpartum depression after having my son, and that ended. And you know, those two key things they're like, to me, I think of it like it was being in a dark hole, very, very far at the bottom of that dark hole, and there was no ladder to climb out, and there was no light. And one of the first things I learned, the important thing, was to slow your thinking. And I kind of go back and forth between slow your thinking and organize the chaos. They kind of, they're interchangeable sometimes, but really, really, really important. So one of the routines I would do is I would get my son from the babysitter, and this is in the midst of maintaining my practice as a holistic health practitioner with various types of treatments. And so I'd see clients. I'd have to pick him up from the babysitter, and my decision to make sure that he was not a casualty of the divorce was a huge factor in terms of how I navigated my either slowing my thinking or managing the chaos, right? So I pick him up, make sure that he's safe, and it's kind of like likening that to when we have to put our oxygen mask on. And in that moment, I had to say the being safe for me, oxygen mask on, was making sure that he was safe. And I needed to do that in order to then be able to regroup, renew, so that I could continue being present and being aware and being able to contribute to his day, his moment, whatever it is, wherever it is I picked up from that point in terms of getting him from the babysitter, because my schedule changed so much, and at one point I was juggling 5 babysitters in order to keep my business afloat and to be able to manage this world that I had created in the midst of all the chaos, right? The key thing was to not go under. That was my thing was, keep everything afloat, right? So managing that, dealing with that in terms of making sure that he was safe. So I made sure that he was safe, and then I also had to, like I said, regroup or renew. So the main thing for me was water. I walked right into the shower. I had a really good cry. I had making sure that after that really good cry, at times it was just almost like a silent scream, to get rid of any kind of frustrations that I was having, or a moment of feeling sorry for myself, dealing with the pity of why was I in the midst of why was this crisis happening to me? So dealing with blame, dealing with feeling that, the unfairness of it all, dealing with feeling betrayed at times. And so what I started to understand with going through, that was one time in terms of going through that process with the divorce, was it's the fact that when you organize that chaos, the emotions of, or being able to identify that you are hurting, being able to identify that there's anger, being able to identify that you there's regret, or you're identifying disappointment. When you can at least structure the chaos, it starts to not feel so overwhelming, right? So structuring the chaos, regardless of if you're in chaos right now or in crisis right now, structure that chaos as best as you can. And one of the ways to structure that is to slow your thinking. So what would happen for me is I would start to focus, obviously, I would say this, on the water. The water made me feel like, okay, I can let go. Or sometimes also too, I did a bath. I just turned the water on and just filled up the bath and stepped into the bath. Either way, it created a nice block, a block in the sense of a stop, right? So I could put my the external responsibilities aside, and I would have a moment to deal with my internal responsibilities, my thinking, my feelings, my connecting with any physical pain sometimes that I was actually feeling, because everything was just so constricted, and just that you physically carry the emotion sometimes, right? There's a weight on your shoulder, you feel the tightness in the back of the neck or the head. So that block, or separating things, organizing things, making things very structured, helps to take away that overwhelming feeling. So that's what I found, and it coincided with the slowing your thinking, because you get a chance to either take it's not just about the breathing, because I can't say that I was always doing deep breathing. There was shallow breathing at times because sometimes I needed to get to the bath or the shower to be able to finally like open up and just have the breath flow really happening in the lungs and the body. And very challenging. Again, you're in a crisis. Lots of adrenaline is happening. So the slowing the thinking at times, or I'm going to say slow your thinking. So it was almost like have life happen in slow motion. Slow your life down. I'm taking a step. I'm taking another step. I had to sometimes just go minute by minute or second by second. Okay, what's happening? I'm putting him here in terms of my son. I'm going to do this. I don't know how, when you learn how to type. So one trick that I learned, or in terms of increasing my typing speed when I was learning how to type, is to say the letters. And so if I'm typing the word slow, I'm going to say S-L-O-W, just doing it that way. And then the faster the faster I became at typing, the faster I was saying the letters. So not the words. You say the letters and you say, S-L-O-W space, T-O space, or a period or a question mark, or, but you start to, so that's an example of what I mean when I say slow your thinking. You want to focus on one thing, and then one thing, and then one thing, and then one thing. That's the way to create that slow motion to come into your life, right? And so that's slowing your thinking, organizing the chaos. Those were some key steps in having the process of the crisis go a little bit smoother. I don't know when the crisis is going to end. For sure, we don't know that. But the thing is, it does end, and how it ends depends on what you're thinking, or setting the intention, or the outcome you want right now. So we have crises where, yes, you get that medical news of a terminal illness, or you get that relationship news of it's over. I don't want to continue anymore. I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to, and you can't breathe. The world stops sometimes, or the crisis starts from that point, and everything is just like moving all over the place. And so third part, or the third part for me, is to be safe. Making sure that you are physically safe, making sure that as best as you can that your environment is safe, making sure that the people you care about and that you love are safe, because there's a lot of regret when we don't check for that internal safety or that environmental safety, and yes, the escalation of an argument or the situation, and people get harmed or people die and they don't survive that. And once everyone's, once things have come down or calmed down, there's loss. And one of the reasons it's because we didn't check for the safety. We didn't make sure that things were legitimately safe. So yes, one of the ways I know people, you're going to leave the situation. You're going to walk away from the situation to create that safety. And the other part with managing the crisis, it's the fact that at some point we are going to look at healing. You as an individual, myself, clients, we need to look at the healing. We have the crisis, we're going through it. How do we deal with that? Okay, these are the steps. This is what I think. This is how I believe it should work, right? The slowing your thinking, the organizing the chaos, the being safe. But the healing is really important. And not only did I deal with the divorce, but I also had to deal with the passing of my ex, and that healing process, managing that with my son, was painful. Painful in the sense that loss is not easy, right? But healing for me represented, I wanted a really healthy relationship. I want a healthy relationship with myself. I want a healthy relationship with my son. And I wanted a healthy relationship with the... it wasn't a thought I had immediately, but it was still a big part of my goal, was to have a relationship with a partner. And so the healing process is painful. And healing in the body, that's the best example one of the examples I can think of, is healing in the body is painful. Going through the process of healing ourselves physically after surgery, rehabilitation, being able to walk again, getting back your full mobility, being able to have a full range of motion with some part of your body, it's very, very, very painful. And so those are the times when we have to go on painkillers. We have to manage the pain, and even the crisis of pain, which is another conversation all on its own. But dealing with that, and I've personally had to experience that with my. I share that in my book, where in terms of going through the doctors experimenting on me with different medications throughout my early teens and on and on and on, until I started to look at natural ways of healing. So it's painful to get to a place where your relationship is working really well for you, really well for your partner or potential partner, or whatever the goal is, better relationship in your family, a better relationship at work. The healing is a painful part. Just like the crisis will pass, the painful aspect of healing passes also. We just have to be determined, or I could say be resilient to the different challenges that you're going to have in the healing process. But you do get to a point where it becomes easy. At some point, that person that's going through rehab starts to walk again, or they're able to manage whatever version of new body that they have. They make the best of it, and that's how we have to look at it, in terms of really getting to that place where the healing represents where it's easier for you to take care of yourself. It's easier for you to take breaks. It's easier for you to not let things get to the crisis point, right? We stop, we prevent before it gets to that point where you're having the crisis. But it's but first we really, today what I'm talking about is just understanding and acknowledging the crisis, and what are we going to do when we are in a crisis, and then just putting in that little piece of hope that there is the crisis passes, and then the next step or next stage of that is living with the healing. And the healing is difficult or challenging, or, like I said, getting to that point where you endure a little bit of the pain, rehab, and gaining back whatever was lost over here in the crisis, and getting to that point where you can start to enjoy the rewards of your effort. And I've seen clients recover fully, and years of living great. Myself personally, it's been quite a few years since the divorce, and even getting to that point of managing my health. And I never back then, I couldn't even imagine that things could be as great as they are now, or as amazing as they are. So, like I said, if you're listening to this and you are going through a crisis, I just want you to know that it passes and things get better. And there's a day where you wake up and you're not in that hole anymore. I woke up and I wasn't in that hole anymore. So it's possible to get to a place of being really happy with what you have and how things are going, and being able to feel really good about your own effort. So I'm just saying, I just want to say, cheering you on if you are dealing with anything, or if this gives you some insight into how to maybe manage and finish a crisis so that you can move on to the healing process of what happens next. All right, talk to you soon. Take care.